The death of the $2 billion guess inside Takeda's AI overhaul. Most people think the pharmaceutical industry is using artificial intelligence to write faster emails, summarize research papers, or automate basic lab work. They are completely wrong. What is actually happening inside the world's leading pharma giants, most notably Takeda, isn't an incremental upgrade. It is a ruthless, top-to-bottom re-engineering of the entire human health value chain. We are moving away from an era where developing a drug required a decade of blind guessing, billions of dollars in sunk costs, and a 90% failure rate. We are entering an era where machine learning, generative biology, and predictive physics models act as the core engine of human medicine. To understand why this matters, you have to look past the marketing hype and examine the brutal reality of how drugs have historically been made. The billion-dollar lottery ticket for the last 50 years, bringing a single drug to market has been one of the worst business models on Earth. The traditional pipeline is a brutal war of attrition. It starts by identifying a disease target, validating the biology, designing a molecule, testing thousands of compounds in a petri dish, moving to animal studies, and then entering the gauntlet of Phase 1 through Phase 3 clinical trials. Finally, after all of that, you hope for regulatory approval. The math behind this process is staggering. It takes 10 to 15 years. It costs upwards of $2 billion per approved drug. And worst of all, roughly 90% of candidates fail before they ever reach a patient. Imagine any other industry operating with a 90% failure rate. Imagine an aerospace company building 10 airplanes, watching 9 of them crash on the runway, and calling that a successful business model. It is unsustainable. When you look at why these drugs fail, it almost always comes down to 3 things. The biological target was wrong from the start. The molecule didn't actually work in a living human organism, or unexpected toxicity appeared late in the game. This is the exact optimization problem that Takeda is solving. The goal isn't to run experiments faster. The goal is to make better decisions so you avoid running the wrong experiments entirely. Chapter 4. Decoding the 4-layer AI stack. To understand how Takeda is pulling this off, you have to look at their infrastructure as a 4-layer architecture. They aren't relying on a single AI model. They have built an interconnected stack that targets every single point of failure in the traditional pipeline. The first layer is knowledge AI. The scientific community produces millions of research papers, patents, clinical trial records, genomic datasets, and protein interaction databases every single year. It is physically impossible for a human scientist, or even a massive team of scientists, to read, synthesize, and connect the dots across this mountain of data. Knowledge AI acts as a living, breathing knowledge graph. It ingests this global sea of information, structures it, and allows scientists to query it. It finds hidden correlations between old research papers and new clinical observations that a human mind would take decades to notice. The second layer is biology AI. Once you have the data, you have to figure out where to attack a disease. Which genes are actually driving the pathology? Which proteins are druggable? Which biological pathways matter most? Instead of manually reviewing thousands of papers or spending years in a wet lab trying to validate a target, Takeda leverages platforms like Panda Omics from Insilico Medicine. The AI analyzes massive omics datasets and ranks the most promising biological targets based on probability of success. It cuts the target identification phase down from years to days. The third layer is chemistry AI. In a traditional workflow, once a biological target is selected, chemists design a molecule, test it in a lab, look at the results, and repeat that cycle thousands of times. It is slow, manual, and expensive. The AI-driven workflow flips this on its head. Generative chemistry tools allow researchers to generate millions of candidate molecules in silico, inside a computer. The system then runs predictive simulations to evaluate potency, toxicity, solubility, stability, and manufacturability before a single physical atom is ever synthesized. Recently, this has evolved even further into physics-informed models, such as those used by Iambic Therapeutics. These models don't just guess what a molecule will do, they use advanced geometric deep learning to predict exactly how a generated molecule will bind to a protein in three-dimensional space. By the time a chemist actually creates a physical compound in a wet lab, the AI has already filtered out the thousands of candidates likely to fail. The fourth and final layer is clinical AI. Clinical trials are where the most money is lost. They are slow, incredibly expensive, and plagued by operational inefficiencies. Clinical AI solves this by optimizing the operational design. It analyzes global health data to determine which hospitals should participate, which specific patient populations qualify, who is most likely to respond positively to the treatment, and who is at risk for adverse events. It turns clinical trials from a massive blunt force experiment into a highly targeted, precisely executed operation. Jacker, the partner, don't reinvent strategy. There is a massive strategic divide happening in the tech and pharma worlds right now. Some companies are trying to build every single AI model from scratch. Takeda has taken a completely different, much more ruthless approach. Partner, don't reinvent. Takeda recognizes that they are a pharmaceutical company, not a foundational AI research lab. Their competitive advantage lies in clinical execution, regulatory navigation, and commercialization. Therefore, their strategy is to aggregate the best-in-class AI tools on Earth and integrate them into a singular pipeline. They have partnered with Microsoft for cloud and generative AI capabilities, Amazon Web Services for scalable data infrastructure, and NVIDIA for the massive accelerated computing power required to run these models. But their most telling moves are happening in the biotechnology ecosystem. Takeda has entered into massive, multi-billion-dollar collaborations with the elite players of generative biology. They signed a massive deal with Iambic Therapeutics to utilize geometric deep learning for oncology and gastrointestinal treatments. They expanded a billion-dollar alliance with Nabla Bio for AI-driven antibody design, and they secured exclusive rights to advanced molecules generated by Insilico Medicine's Pharma.ai platform. When you look at the economics of these deals, Takeda is paying significant upfront premiums. Why? Because they realize that paying for a validated, AI-optimized starting point is incredibly cheap compared to the alternative of burning hundreds of millions of dollars on manual trial and error that ends in a dead end. What most commentators miss: if you listen to mainstream tech commentary, you'll hear people claiming that AI is going to magically invent drugs on its own, replace scientists, and cure diseases at the push of a button. That completely misses the point. AI does not invent drugs autonomously. What AI actually does is prioritize the next experiment. Drug discovery is not a singular eureka moment. It is a long, continuous sequence of micro-decisions. Which target do we pursue? Which molecule do we synthesize? What is the optimal dose? Which patients do we recruit? If an AI model can make each of those decisions just 5 or 10% more accurate, those advantages compound exponentially across a 10-year timeline. A 10% increase in accuracy at every stage doesn't just make the process slightly faster, it completely alters the financial risk profile of the entire company. It turns drug development from a reckless gamble into a calculated, high-probability science. Chart the horizon, 2026 to 2030. As we look toward the rest of the decade, this architecture is only going to become more deeply entrenched. We are moving toward multimodal foundation models that can simultaneously analyze a patient's genomics, their medical imaging, and their real-world clinical history all at once. We are seeing the rise of digital twins, virtual AI-generated replicas of patients and disease progressions that allow scientists to simulate a clinical trial before it even starts. We are also seeing the emergence of autonomous laboratory workflows, where AI models design an experiment and robotic wet labs execute the physical synthesis and testing without human intervention, feeding the data back into the AI to create a continuous feedback loop. The long-term goal of all of this is clear: drastically shortening the path from a biological discovery to an approved life-saving therapy in the hands of a patient. The ultimate strategic takeaway. There is a fundamental lesson here for any business leader, investor, or technologist watching the AI revolution unfold. Most tech commentators assume that the ultimate winners of the AI drug race will be the pure-play tech platforms, the companies that build the software, design the algorithms, and generate the initial molecules. They are looking at the chessboard backward. The ultimate winners will not be the entities that just design the molecules. The winners will be the legacy giants who know how to run complex clinical trials, navigate strict global regulatory bodies, and scale commercial manufacturing globally, and who have the strategic clarity to rip out their old internal infrastructure and replace it with an AI engine. By aggressively outsourcing the high-risk, high-attrition, early-stage lottery ticket phase of drug discovery to specialized AI shops, Takeda is letting tech startups take the early structural risks. Meanwhile, Takeda positions itself as the ultimate clinical validator and scaling machine. Most pharmaceutical companies are using technology to try and do science faster. Takeda is using AI to make better scientific decisions. And in a high-stakes industry where a single wrong decision costs $2 billion, that is the only distinction that matters.